Hello, they've seen one government forced out by fighters, gun battles on their streets and soldiers pour in from a neighbouring country. And many people in Somalia's capital are now giving up hope of a normal life. In just 2 weeks, 170,000 civilians have grabbed what they can and fled their homes in Mogadishu. It follows renewed fighting between Ethiopian forces and fighters from the Islamic Courts Union. The UN's refugee agency is now labelling it the worst humanitarian crisis in the whole of Africa. The refugees have few places to go and the little aid there is can't stretch any further. Mohamed Addo looks now at the struggle of those left behind in Mogadishu.
Maimed in a senseless war. These are some of Somalia's war wounded. Shrapnel injuries caused by mortars, artillery and rockets have brought them here. Even children have not been spared in the bloodshed. This man is lucky to be alive. His attackers left him for dead.
I was attacked as I left my house. The bullets destroyed my lungs. I was rushed here. My brother was killed at the same place the following day.
There have been muted reactions to recent events in Mogadishu from the international community. But the Red Cross is now leading calls for respect for civilians in the war-torn capital.
And the RCRC would like to urge all the parties to the conflict just to respect the civilians, to spare the civilians, to respect the medical facilities, the wounded, and to do everything possible to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian action, be it in Mogadishu, in the surrounding of the capital, or anywhere else in Somalia.
But Somalia's president describes the civilian casualties in Mogadishu as unavoidable.
When two elephants fight, the grass gets damaged. We are not the cause of these deaths. It's being caused by those who attack the government. I urge the public to ask the militias fighting the government not to wage attacks from where they live.
Mogadishu is a city that has long ground to a halt. Few things work apart from the weapons that torment its people. It is the lack of meaningful healthcare that is most appalling. This is Medina Hospital. It is one of only 3 hospitals offering help to Mogadishu's sick and wounded. Ill-equipped and poorly staffed, dozens of patients arrive here daily. And as the violence spirals, the staff has never been so exhausted.
The work is overwhelming. When we came here, already everyone was so tired. And we can't replace the staff because we have very few personnel.
Relatives of the sick jostle for space with medical staff. They are not here to visit the sick. They too offer priceless service. They help feed the sick, keep them cool, and wheel them between theatres and wards. And in the midst of desperation, Medina Hospital has its own ways of coping. Patients are released early, and the corridors provide extra sleeping space for some. It is a typical day for the surgical staff at Medina Hospital. They are forced to work around the clock, removing bullets, fixing ripped intestines, and performing amputations. They are the unsung heroes of Mogadishu today. Mohamed Addo, Al-Jazeera.
Well, later this news hour, we'll be getting more detail on this staggering exodus from Mogadishu. We'll be crossing live to Nairobi for the latest from a UNHCR representative. One politician in the Philippines has been killed and at least one other person has been confirmed dead after an explosion at the entrance to one of the country's parliament buildings. Up to 10 others have been injured in the blast. It happened after a debate in the lower house or Congress on whether to impeach the Philippines president, Gloria Arroyo. Police suspect that a car bomb was used and political officials say it was the work of anarchists and terrorists aiming to destabilise the government. Al-Jazeera's correspondent Margot Ortigas is in Manila and joins us now. Margot, what's the latest there in the investigation?
Yes, police have actually just come out on local radio and say that they believe this may have been a targeted attack aimed at the congressman that passed away just a few minutes ago. He is a rather colorful figure here, a Muslim congressman from the province of Basilan, which has been the home ground of the Abu Sayyaf militant group and also the scene of many skirmishes between the Abu Sayyaf and the military in the last few months. Now, this congressman is known to have made very many enemies, not just amongst the opposition. He has allied himself with President Arroyo, but also amongst other what are called here Muslim extremist groups. Now, since he received the force of the blast, and he was standing closest to the parked vehicle at the time of the explosion. Police are saying they believe that he may indeed have been the target of the explosion. His body will be flown to his home province in the south of the Philippines early this morning for burial, rather.
And Marga, you say it's a targeted attack. Is that an unusual tactic in that area?
Yes, it is. There have been many cases of what they call extrajudicial killings here in the Philippines. Smaller or lesser popular politicians have been killed in the run-up to local elections, but this is the first time such a bold move was executed, and right in the heart of Manila, close to where the seat of government is. So it's shaken many of the country's lawmakers and senators. The whole city has now been put again under red alert. The presence of the military and police is seen everywhere now, and checkpoints are going to be set up again. And
you say it's obviously increased security. What's the impression amongst ordinary people? Are they kind of going home and locking themselves in, or are they out and about trying to do their normal business?
I think more than anything, really, it's still a country in shock. This is just 2 to 3 weeks after the explosion in a very popular shopping mall in the financial district, and the cause of that explosion is still under debate, and findings have not been conclusive just yet. Police now saying they're leaning towards an industrial accident. So people are still trying to come to terms with that, and then something like this happens in the heart of what they see as their government. So it's more like they're losing confidence in President Arroyo's to control the country than they are losing confidence in the actual security of the nation as a whole.
Okay, Marga Ortigas, thank you very much indeed for joining us there from Manila. Pakistan has strongly rejected a British and Commonwealth deadline to end emergency rule in 10 days or face suspension. A Foreign Ministry statement says the deadline demand is based on an absence of understanding. Meanwhile, there's been ongoing violence between police and anti-government protesters. These are scenes on the streets of Karachi where supporters of former President Bhutto are accused of shooting at 2 police stations. Bhutto's party officials strongly deny the allegations and vow to continue their demonstrations. But as James Bayes reports, security crackdowns defused a planned protest march from Lahore to Islamabad.
Behind the barricades, Benazir Bhutto once more under detention. Police, some armed, all equipped with riot gear, kept people well away. A handful of protesters got this far. They were allowed to make their point, but then they were taken away. As they were arrested, others made the most of their moment in the spotlight, a prison van becoming a public platform. Elsewhere across Lahore, Pakistan's second biggest city, it was business as usual.
And I see arming and police everywhere like I used to ever since I've grown up. So, I don't think it makes much of a difference. Not at least to my life.
Well, I personally think that the president is a very strong person, and even in the past he has taken care of many issues and many things have been resolved, like the Afghanistan and Gulf War and stuff like that.
In many ways, this was a test of Benazir Bhutto's support. There was protest, bricks were thrown, tyres burnt, and a car set on fire. But none of the mass demonstrations she promised. So far, the protests have been small and sporadic. No sign of the thousands of people that Benazir Bhutto said would take to the streets. James Bayes, Al Jazeera, Lahore.
So let's look at where the key figures stand in Pakistan. President Pervez Musharraf imposed emergency rule on November the 3rd. He cited rising militancy and interference by the judiciary in the running of the country. On Sunday, he held a news conference for the first time since emergency rule, where he promised elections by January the 9th. Musharraf says he will step down as head of the army and take office as a civilian if re-elected president. Former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto was initially open to discussing a power-sharing deal. She held talks with Musharraf several months ago and then returned from 8 years' exile. But after the state of emergency was imposed, she announced she wouldn't meet or negotiate with Musharraf until it was lifted and he stepped down as military chief. She's currently under house arrest in Lahore for the second time in a week. She now wants to build an alliance with other political leaders, including ex-Premier Nawaz Sharif. Former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif attempted to return to Pakistan in September, but was stopped at the airport. He's now in exile in Saudi Arabia. And while Benazir Bhutto was manoeuvring her way into an unofficial deal with President Musharraf, Sharif's party was putting together a new all-opposition parties alliance ahead of the upcoming election.